Are you struggling to close deals? Cold outreach is wasting the time of both the buyer and seller at every stage, especially when sellers are using shallow and outdated data. Your organization can overcome these challenges with technology that translates comprehensive, high-quality buyer data into real-time insights. These deeper insights empower sales reps and teams to adopt the habits of top performers, which leads to better outcomes, like more pipeline, higher win rates, and larger deals. We call this deep sales. And we've built the first deep sales platform with the next generation of LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/trial. That's linkedin.com/trial for a 60-day free trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Just go to linkedin.com/trial and get started.
This podcast is brought to you by eHarmony, the dating app to find someone you can be yourself with. Why doesn't eHarmony allow copy and paste in first messages? Because you are unique, and your conversations should reflect that. eHarmony wants you to find someone who will get you. How are you going to know who gets you if people send you the same generic conversation starters they message everyone else? Conversations that actually help you get to know each other. Imagine that. Get who gets you on eHarmony. Sign up today.
This episode is sponsored by AutoTrader. There's a good chance you're driving right now. Look around. Safely. What do you see? Cars. Lots of them. And guess what? They're probably on AutoTrader. Whether you're into timeless classics or the latest trends. Did somebody say solar-powered, eco-friendly, vegan, leather-wrapped, aromatherapy-scented, disco ball-equipped, self-driving car? If you see it on the road, you can likely find it on AutoTrader. Big cars, small cars, blue cars, new cars, used cars, electric cars, and one day, maybe even flying cars. With millions to choose from, buying a car becomes a whole lot easier. See it, find it, AutoTrader. Find your next car on autotrader.com.
This episode brought to you by the following patrons: Leaf Girl, Min, Sex Caliber Bones a Lot, Madeline, Alyssa, Vixen, Holly, Natasha, Laura, Jeremy with the laser eyes, Allie, Logan, Libby, Aaron, Kristen, Amy, Tia, Jonathan, and Isaac. But because it's that special time of the month, we get to shout out our You Can Get It level sponsors, and they are The Viking Paratrooper, Kathy, Nikki, Knitting Menace, Samantha, Trevor, Renee, Billy, Jennifer, Caitlin, Edward, Dharma, Grace, Bryce, Vanny, Sean, Shayna, Allie, Dr. Voorhees, MD, Liza, Becca, AJ, Radioactive Spider, Gwen, Aaron, Naomi, Bex, Laura Lubu, Cameron, Kaylee, Jackie, Alyssa, Mushroom Snail Fox, and Unintentionally Badass, aka Jennifer. And all the patrons want you to know you're loved, you're listened to, and you're a valuable member of this awesome Horror Virgin community. And if you want to hang out with us, do so in the Facebook group where we'll be hanging out daily.
I accidentally showed my titties to a fan recording.
We're starting with that, Paige. We're starting with you flashing, possibly a fan?
Not flashing.
No,
I was clothed,
surely not.
But most of my titties were not. Oh, well.
You know, Paige, your famous nickname? Paige is clothed, but her titties are out. Wesley.
Her titties are out, Wesley. It was appropriate for the occasion.
It was. And honestly, that bar mitzvah was wonderful.
Thank you for tuning into Horror Virgin. I'm Paige.
And I'm your Horror Virgin Todd, which means I don't like scary movies, but you guys make me watch them. And this week, you guys, because this was our listener request, made us watch
The Final Girls.
So, Paige, was this your first time seeing it?
This was. I was aware of this movie, but I had never seen it.
Same.
Yeah, same for you too. And I texted you at 3 a.m. my time when I finished this movie, and 5 a.m. your time when you were about to get on a plane to be where you are right now.
It was technically 4 a.m. my time because I was Mountain Time this morning. I'm Central Time now. So, this is not even a joke. I text Paige at midnight my time, and she was just starting the movie.
Right.
And I was going to bed after being out all night schmoozing prospective clients. And then as I woke up to go to the airport to fly here to record with you, You were going to bed having watched the movie and we were texting again.
Yeah. Yes, because I was like, I'm going to start the movie right now, and then fell asleep on the couch for like an hour and then started the movie.
Oh, sleep sounds amazing.
Sleep does that. I'm going to get you through it, baby. It'll be fine. What I texted you is that I have a small but thoughtful dissertation on this movie.
Yes.
I would like to start this TED Talk now. I love so much
hang
of
on,
what
Paige.
this movie...
Hang on.
Okay.
At least let me finish rolling out the circular red carpet.
Oh, thank you. Do you have the big letters handy? Great.
It's just a T and an O and two Ds, though.
It's a Todd Talk. Okay. I love a lot of what this movie is trying to do. A lot. I think it has two problems. I think one is budgetary, and I think the other is a screenwriting problem that they encountered halfway through and didn't know how to fix. Okay, so number one, budgetary.
Yeah.
The effects do not hold up in a brutal way. And there are many, many places where they could have chosen to go more practical, and they did not. And I think it really doesn't serve the movie. Now, in addition to that, and I don't know if this might be a budgetary thing too, because as you and I both know, sometimes it's way cheaper to shoot digitally in certain ways than it is to try and do practical things in other ways. You and I both know this.
Of course. Yes. Yeah. I mean, some of the like animatronics that they would need might be more expensive than you could CGI it, you know?
Yes. And that's why I'm like, I think this might be a budgetary issue. So I give it a pass. I'm not going to really hold it against it. There is one thing that I wish they had done differently that I think would have cost them the same. Let me know if you agree. And it's that they shot the like movie that we see before they enter the movie. And it is the kind of grainy 80s look. You want it to look like Friday the 13th, like specifically Friday the 13th part 2.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or Sleepaway Camp. Like you want it to kind of look like that.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, the 80s camp horror movie vibes.
Yes.
Everyone knows what we're talking about.
Yeah.
You're listening to a horror podcast. You get it.
Exactly. You get it. They do a great job of doing that for the movie, but then once they enter the movie, they shoot everyone in this weird golden hour, light behind the head, glowy vibe. And I'm like, this would be so much better if they went from present day digital shots like we're used to the graininess instead of this weird glowing shot. And I don't know if that was a budgetary thing too. It may have been, but I'm like, you're shooting everyone with lens flares. And if you just did a different filter instead, this would kind of look cooler and serve your everything better. So I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Man, Paige, let me just high level how I feel about the movie, and then
yes,
I'll accept your disappointment and we can move through it.
Well, I'll get to my second point. That's the screenwriting problem, but go ahead.
Okay. I loved this movie. I thought it was awesome. I was really glad my flight wasn't full when I was full ass sobbing towards the end of this movie and there was no one next to me. Cause like
I cried a lot.
There were moments I was like, I put my hood up at one moment because I was crying.
That's fair.
I'm not even joking. Guys, I slept just like 2 hours last night and I had to watch the movie on the plane on my iPad.
That's like, from a screenwriting perspective, that's the part of the movie that works the best is the relationship with her and her mom. And yes, I'll get to it in a sec.
Oh my God. And the way they set it up with the Persephone and like the story and like how they even say it at the beginning, like you have to continue moving forward and not look back.
Yes.
And that is sort of what Malin Ackerman like tells her towards the very end of the movie. And it's like, I've loved our time together, but you need to move on. Like that kind of, and it's so fucking sad. And I love it. But I love it because it's like anyone who's lost someone close to them can like really like sink into that emotion. And like, it's like one of those, like, I'm crying, but I'm not mad about it kind of a thing, you know?
Yeah.
I do understand what you're saying about the effects and stuff like that.
And there's no blood and no titties. I'm like, give me both. Those are staples of those kinds of movies. And I know you're probably trying to go for a PG-13, but fuck that. Give me full blood, give me R, give me titties.
Give me tibbies or give me death.
Give me dicks too. Like all of it. Like those movies had crazy nudity. Like do it. If you're going to do it, do it.
For those of you who only heard Paige scream, give me dicks, you're welcome. If you want that to be your ringtone, reach out to me. Paige, I sort of agree with you. It is an homage heavily to those movies where we would have seen at least feminine nudity, right? Like we would have seen that in those movies.
Right.
I think this is trying to do a more positive women approach towards those tropes. So I understood why they weren't doing it. In fact, I really loved Tina. I don't know who Tina is.
Tina's my favorite character in the entire movie, 100%.
The lady who played Tina should be in every movie doing every part. She's nuts. I loved her.
She's nuts and I love her.
She really knew what she was being asked to do.
100%.
And she was like, oh, yeah, I can definitely do that. And she crushes it. When she is wearing oven mitts and
oh my God, the oven. Every single time she's trying to take the life vest off with the oven mitts, or they like give thumbs up and then she tries, but it's oven mitts. And I was like, oh my God, I love her.
I know.
She's crushing it.
And there's no irony in it. Like she is genuine, so genuine when she's giving those thumbs up that we can't see because of the oven mitts.
But it's that lack of irony, which is why I will make an argument. We need the titties because even the movie is like, if you have sex, you die.
Yes.
Which is still like those people all still die. Like it does not subvert that at all. And it really does play with like, especially Adam Devine and the other characters of this, like the only version we have of these people is the 2-dimensional version we have in the movie. And they just continue to be that. And in that, the homage is so funny because they are nailing it. They are crushing it.
They are.
And like, I don't want to interrupt your high leveling if you have more to say, but once you're done.
Oh, no, please go on. No, you're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's where my screenwriting problem comes in.
Tell me.
Okay. This is a meta film, right?
I don't think there's anything meta in this movie. Well, yeah, it's all meta. It's very, like, we go into a movie in this movie.
Yes.
It is very meta. Yeah.
This is a very meta film. If we look at, I will say the most successful meta horror film of all time, Scream, something that Scream has on its side that this movie doesn't. And I don't mean like they did anything wrong, but just the nature of the world we're playing in. Scream is relying on known horror movies. It does not ask us to see a new horror movie or understand a new one. It asks us to remember the ones that we have seen and play in that world based on that known societal knowledge. This movie is actually doing something harder where it is introducing us to a movie and a backstory for that movie within the same 90 minutes and then trying to finish the world building and solve it. Now, I will argue it is building on shared knowledge of like Friday the 13th and other movies like that. So it's banking on us understanding that to a point, but it does have to take the time to set up Camp Bloodbath and this specific movie so that we understand the specific lore of this specific movie. That's not a bad thing. The lore is really interesting.
Yeah, it
is.
I
do think it's really fun.
I actually really liked his mask. Billy, I think is his name.
This is just a crazy square?
Yeah.
That was nuts.
It's sort of Easter Island head-ish?
A little. Well, to me, it almost made me think of like, what's the worst version of the least practical version of this mask, and let's do it. And I kind of loved that.
Because it looks like stone.
It looks like stone.
And that would be heavy.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
But so we have to spend a lot of time in build-up for this movie, and it is only 91 minutes. And I think it was probably budgetary that they couldn't go longer. And I don't necessarily know how well they would have managed to do this in the time allotted, even with a little more time. But it means that we have a really heavily loaded first act. We have a middle act that kind of flounders because we don't know the rules of this world. And even the rules of the movie and the rules of the world kind of stay vague for a lot of the movie because they can't take the time to explain any of it to you. And then the third act is rushed to hell because you're like, okay, now it's this. Now it's this. Now you have to kill somebody. Now you have to kill somebody. Now you have to do this. And it's like, oh man, I really wish we could have had, I don't know if it's maybe an extra 15 minutes. I don't know if it's one more pass on the script to solidify the rules of the world. One of those two things needed to happen so that we as the audience could give a little more weight to some of the emotional pieces of it as it's going, instead of kind of being rushed through the last act. Now, controversial statement. I have talked to a number of people who hate the ending of this movie. I disagree with y'all. The ending of this movie is fucking brilliant because it's literally Halloween 2.
Yes.
I was losing my mind.
Yes.
And like, it's definitely a case of like, well, maybe it would have gotten a sequel. I'm like, no, it is the ultimate commitment to the homage
Yes.
of the movies they're making.
It is.
And I love the ending. I'll take it.
Although I would take a sequel to this where we get them in that hospital with Billy running around with not one this time, but two machetes.
But 2 machetes.
Yes. So funny. It was so funny.
I feel like the movie understands so much of what it is parodying, and it does such a great job. I just wish it had more blood, more titties, and I wish we just had a slightly cleaner structure to the rules of the world. Then it's perfect for me.
Yeah, I think that it assumes that people who are watching this movie love those camp movies and know
Sure.
generally what the rules are. But Paige, you're right. Like the rules do shift between each of the series, right? Like it's not always the same rules.
Sure. I need to know that there never seems to be a clear, this is what will get you out.
Exactly.
Now,
yeah.
having seen it, right? Having seen it and knowing that they don't get out because the ending is a sequel.
Right.
Like, and they're just part of this ecosystem now. That makes a little more sense because if you said this is how you get out and then they didn't, that would be a problem too. But it feels like they're kind of throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. And we never get a clear sense of momentum. Are they making progress or are they not? And it's a second act problem because the third act is fine. It's just too rushed.
And Paige, I wrote down during the second act of this movie, at what point would we just not all like load up on whatever weapons we could find and go hunt Billy?
Hunt him down. Yes.
Because if he's dead, the credits roll. Like, I'm not waiting until Tina gets out of her mitten cuffs.
Yeah.
Like, let's just go find him and kill him as a team.
And we know how to bring him out of hiding. Like, we've learned that.
Oh, yeah, we could just unleash Tina.
Yeah.
We could unleash.
We could unleash anybody.
Well, true. I guess it is just any tit.
It's any tits, which is why where it's like, I understand the thinking of like, well, maybe they're trying to be a little more friendly to the women in the movie. I was like, not really, because you have to show your tits for him to show up.
Well, yeah, but they don't have to be nude on film. Yeah. But they don't have to be nude actually in the movie. I don't know. I mean,
that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I would settle for body doubles. I would settle, because a lot of the older ones had crazy body doubles. I would just settle for more blood, even if I couldn't have more titties, because somebody dies in a bear trap and there's not a drop of blood in this movie. And I hated that.
Paige.
I love that death. That death is hilarious.
Yes. Thank you.
I want it to be bloody.
Yes. Because I love that death too. It's one of my favorites. It's insane. And it comes right after, I think, possibly the best performance of the 2000s to now.
Oh my, I was dying. It was so funny.
Tina is, this is going to be another controversial statement, listeners, and I apologize. And we as a podcast just preemptively apologize for what I'm about to say.
Oh no.
Tina is on the same level as Mercutio. She had to die.
Yes.
If she didn't die, this would be Tina's movie. And that's how good she is. She is like Shakespearean levels of good. And I realize when I'm saying that it sounds insane, but please understand I'm right. And I only got 2 hours of sleep and watched this on a plane. And so forgive me.
No notes.
But no, I do. I think she's awesome. I don't know that I'm sure I've seen her in other things.
You absolutely have.
She should be in everything. She's so, man, she crushed it. I just brought up her IMDb and it looks like she was in The Good Place. It looks like she just does like TV. She's a working actress for sure.
Oh yeah. She's been in a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
But also I want to say stuff we've done on Romancing the Pod.
Yeah, that's fair. But it looks like she's done like a lot of TV stuff and like TV movie stuff, which I mean, great for her. She's a working actress.
Yeah.
And I can see why, because she's amazing.
Oh, she was in this amazing documentary in 2020 called Have a Good Trip, where people just recount the times that they've taken psychedelics and what happened. It's a real fun documentary if you get the chance.
I'm just going to repeat my offer to Robert Evans. If I'm ever going to do shrooms or anything like that, it's going to be with him in like Joshua Tree or something.
That's not the only place to do shrooms. It's just a great place to do shrooms.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes. So that's kind of where I land on it, where I love the homage. I think they do such a good job, but I want Friday the 13th 6 amounts of blood. You know, the one where there was like so much blood in that room, it was like more than one person's body's worth of blood?
Yes.
I want that.
It was so much blood.
I'd take some titties if people felt okay being titties out, because that would be accurate to the homage. And streamline that second act so that we have more time in the third act with the emotional core of the story. And maybe some effects, fix some of the effects.
Paige, I think I was 100% fine with the effects, and I really got into how, like, the effects were played out.
The car accident's rough because they do not hold up.
The car accident is pretty Adobe Audition circa 2015.
Yes,
like,
it's Mummy 2 Scorpion King levels of bad. It's really bad.
I'll give you that one. I will give you that one. But I realized in the final fight that this is just an anime. And so all of those shots of where it's clearly green screen and like Malin Ackerman's walking out of the church.
Oh, I was like, this is where they spent all of their effects money, are these big wide shots with the fog.
Well, and they're all green screened. I mean, they
have to be, because it's massive.
But I love it. And when I realized as she's fighting Billy the last time, I was like, oh, this is just an anime.
Yeah.
And I'm here for it. Like, that's awesome. I mean, it's not a cartoon, obviously, but it's like very much that style, right?
The story structure is more of an anime, yes.
Yeah. So like the effects didn't bother me because I really sort of dug the way they swung that fucking camera around a few times, and it like without cutting spotlights different spots of the scene. I thought that was cool, and they do it like 3 or 4 times.
They do, and that part of the movie looks good. That's when they blew their entire effects budget there, because the car accident looks terrible. The fire now the way that they start the fire in the theater looks cool, but the fire itself maybe struggles a bit. And then when people die, that's the part that was really not working for me. As funny as it was to see Adam Devine pretzeled, it looks real fake. The bear trap, there's no blood. That looks pretty fake. Like there's a whole lot of it that I'm like, you could have done this practically and had it look bad, and it looked bad in a different way. And it would have been on par and on theme for the movie. And I would have accepted it more than the bad CG. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but again, it didn't bother me because I watched this on a plane with 2 hours of sleep, and I realized it was an anime, and I was like, oh, okay, there's not going to be a lot of blood in that, guys. That's fine, it's fine.
All right.
But I really did like it. I mean, I like Thomas Middleditch's character is like exactly what you would expect Thomas Middleditch's character to be, which is funny and creepy.
Insensitive?
Yes, yeah.
Super insensitive.
But also like very funny and like very like, I don't know if it's on purpose, but just doesn't really think the people around him are full ass people with lives or whatever. Like,
Clearly.
The way he treats the nun.
Max.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tessa Farmiga, but her character's name is Max.
Yeah, the way he treats Max is like just really fucking insensitive.
Yes.
And like doesn't really account for like what she might be going through on the anniversary of her mother's fucking death.
Yeah, not at all.
Like,
yes.
It's crazy. Oh my God. But yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Paige, since neither of us were going to say anything stupider than Tina's as good as Mercutio in this movie, why don't we just go through it scene by scene?
Let's do it. Let's get to our beloved Tina.
Yes.
We open on a scene from Camp Bloodbath, and it is Camp Bluefinch, where all the counselors are.
Yeah.
They're like, it's going to be the best summer ever. It's basically a trailer, but my favorite is they're like singing camp songs and they get killed, and the trailer just goes, Kimba, no, instead of Kumbaya.
Yes.
And I lost my mind. I was like, Kumbaya, no.
Paige, I literally wrote this in my note because this is kind of the stuff, it makes me chuckle, but it really makes you laugh.
Oh.
And I wrote in my note, Kimba, no. Paige is going to lose her fucking mind at that.
Yeah, Kumbaya, no. Because it makes no sense.
At all.
Now, I know
It's
that they're like going
gibberish.
from like
Of course.
Kumbaya, and so it's no instead of ya, but it's absolute gibberish, and it's so funny to me. But then they're like, Kumbaya, no, they messed with the wrong virgin. And I was like, that's hysterical. Like, I'm on board. This is madness.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that does set a really good tone for the movie, I think. And I mean that, like, this is going to be a horror comedy. There will be scary, and there were scary, like, not character, but like Billy intros into the scenes. The first 2, like, are jumpy, and they scared me a little bit. But he's not actually killing someone at the time.
Right.
But like, he's just like showing up places or whatever. And there's like a musical stinger and you're like, oh God.
Right. Well, and this is what I mean by they're having to do legwork to bring us into the world and bring us into the homage. Because this trailer, hilarious, is not enough for us to know enough about the rules of the world because it's too quick. But it lays the groundwork for Malin Ackerman and how she got killed in the movie. And we basically pull back and it's Tessa Farmiga, Max, her daughter, watching it on a smartphone. It does look like a Sidekick, which I don't know what kind of phone it was, but it was like pre-iPhone smartphone. But by the time we get 3 years into the future, they've got iPhones, which I think is pretty funny that they even like differentiated there. But
I mean, but that's like probably factually accurate because
I had no problems. I was like, this is actually weirdly enough research accurate. Like that is the kind of smartphone I had in 2012.
Yeah, I think the iPhone may have been out 2012.
It was out.
But it wasn't like...
But they were very expensive, so they weren't as common.
Yeah, but the Sidekick was. Like, the Sidekick was all over the place.
Yeah, Sidekick was. In 2012, I guess maybe in 2011, I think I had a Palm Centro and then got an iPhone in probably 2012.
Oh my God. A Palm Central page. Oh.
Yeah.
You had a Palm device.
I had a Palm Centro, yeah, because at the time, they were still a big deal.
They were... pre what we now know as smartphones.
Right.
They were the smartphones. Yeah.
Right. And it had a full button keyboard.
Oh, yeah.
But like on the time, and it's not much bigger than my iPhone now. In fact, it was probably smaller.
I think it was.
Full button keyboard. And it was the first phone I ever had that could take pictures, but the pictures were so grainy. Like, why would you ever? Anyway, so... She's watching it on a smartphone and her mom gets into the car. Her mom is Malin Ackerman, clearly much later into the future and clearly coming back from like a job interview.
And it's like a job interview at a strip mall of something. You know, it doesn't look like it's like a high quality job interview. Because I think it's actually like, well, it may not even be an audition.
It might be. We don't fully know. Yeah.
She sort of plays it like it is an audition, but that just might be what she's comfortable with as far as like, hey, how'd it go? You know, well, they'll let me know, like that kind of thing. Although, you know, Max, her daughter, Tessa Farmiga, is holding, and we're seeing like her headshots, Malin Ackerman's headshots, you know?
Right.
And on the back of it, like it has like her list of credits. So I would assume that like...
probably some audition of some sort. Yeah.
Sure. It's probably some audition, but it doesn't seem to be like a great quality audition. But I mean, what can she expect when her last TV project was Meatballs in Heaven, Paige?
I know.
If you're wondering right now, did Todd make that up or did he pause it and zoom in and
that was my question. Did you pause and zoom in?
The answer is yes. I paused it and zoomed in and read every fucking one of them. And some of them were actually
That's
like,
amazing.
That might be a real thing. And then some of them were like Meatballs in Heaven.
I love that.
Me too. One of them was just fire! Exclamation point. So it's like, it was shit like that. But it's
Can I tell you, as a screenwriter, those are the most fun parts of like, all right, let's come up with 14 fake restaurants.
Yes, exactly.
Like, yes.
Yeah. I thought it was hilarious.
I love that.
And I figured because this is a horror comedy, and I would say that this is more than just being a horror comedy, is more in the lane of like a Cabin in the Woods horror comedy. That is like a, with love, we will poke fun at the tropes we love, you know?
Right.
And I think it fucking crushes that, but I knew because of that they would probably have some silly stuff in this.
Now, I do have one, oddly enough, makeup note in this scene. And I think after seeing the whole movie, I think they were trying to make Malin Ackerman look older. Because, you know, she and Tessa Farmiga there's an age gap, but probably not enough to be a mother and daughter age gap. And so I think they were trying to make her look older. Unfortunately, they did not color correct whatever concealer that they used under her eyes. And so it showed very, very, very dark on screen to the point where it looked like she had black eyes and had tried to cover it up with foundation.
Yeah.
So I know. So for a hot second, I was like, is she being abused? Because it looked really strong on screen.
I wondered if we were going to get like an abusive ex-husband / father of Max subplot. We didn't.
We don't.
But I definitely saw that too, Paige. And I didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think makeup tips. I'm like, oh, what is this trying to tell me without saying it on screen?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So like, your brain, I think, sort of automatically does that when you're watching movies. You're like, looking for that kind of stuff, whether you think about it or not. So like I did wonder that in that moment, but it isn't that. So I'm sure it was just the makeup.
Yeah, and again, I think they're just trying to make her look old or older, and so they were like, well, we'll give her dark circles, but unfortunately they didn't color correct the rest of it, so it kind of covers her whole eye.
Yeah.
We do learn that she has an on and off boyfriend called Frank that has a place in Palm Springs that maybe is serious, maybe not, maybe there's a deleted scene where he gave her black eyes. Like, that's maybe.
It seems like Frank is not as into Malin Ackerman as
she is into him.
He should be. Right.
Which is insane because she's still gorgeous.
Yeah, because she's still Malin Ackerman.
Yes.
I mean, a woman so gorgeous, Mikey had to leave the podcast to attempt at seducing her.
I did think, I was like, oh my God, Malin Ackerman's in this. Mikey's missing out.
I thought about that too.
But also, I happen to know that Mikey did not really like this movie.
I know.
From what I remember.
Which is fine.
It's fine, but I disagree. Anyway,
Same.
They're singing to Betty Davis Eyes, and Tessa Farmiga is going over their bills, and she kind of like throws the bills, her mom throws the bills out the window.
Well, it's very much like an electric bill. It's like, we've got to find a way to come up with $174 by Monday. And if you've never experienced this, that's so great for you. I'm so happy for you. Because this is like my childhood right here, you know?
Oh, yeah.
I understood Max 1,000,000% in this moment. When Max, her child, Malin Ackerman's child, is like, hey, I need you to focus for a second.
Yeah.
This bill needs to get paid. And then her mom throws the bill out the window like it's not shit.
Yeah.
I would be very upset, honestly. I'd be like, come on. What are we doing, Mom?
I would say in this moment that Tessa Farmiga is a parentified child.
She is.
Where
she
has had to take on more responsibility than maybe she should have. And that, for me, that's very sad.
Yes.
That happened to her. But I mean, I'm sure that probably did happen when I was a kid and my parents just didn't tell me. It's happened to me as an adult, like for sure.
I mean, yeah, both sides of the coin for me, for sure.
Yeah.
Can I tell you a stupid thing that happened to me after I really could afford to pay my bills?
Yeah, you just forgot?
I just forgot.
I've done that.
I just fucking forgot. Paige, I got a bonus from my work at the time. I don't work there anymore, but like it was a few $1,000s. Like I got it 2 weeks before my power got shut off because I hadn't paid the bill for 3 months.
Right.
I had the money. I just didn't think about it, which I do think automatically cutting off the power is a little unfair. What they should do is like maybe dim the lights a little bit. And you're like, man, is the ceiling fan going kind of slow? Oh shit, I got to pay my power bill. Anyway, it was my fault. I didn't notice till it was on the weekend. And then I couldn't get my power back for a day, even though I paid it within 2 minutes of them shutting my power off.
Oh yeah.
Because I was like, wait, what happened? Oh shit. And I paid it immediately.
I have experienced that same one too, and called them and was like, you better get somebody out here to turn the power on, because it was like a holiday weekend and they were like, we can't unless it's an emergency. I was like, what do you need me to tell you that it's an emergency?
Right.
Because I could call and say anything. And they were like, well, no, it has to be a real emergency. I was like, you wouldn't know till you got there. And then are you just not going to do it because you're already there?
It took literally a day and a half for them to turn my power back on, but I just went and hung out. My brother lived across the street, an apartment complex across the street. So I just went over there and hung out with him for a day. And we made fun of me quite a bit during that whole day.
Sure.
Deservedly so.
Yeah. Anyway, she throws it out, but as they're driving, it's kind of fast. I think she drops the phone or spills something.
She drops, I think it's like a coffee. It was like a drink of some sort, and it gets on the headshots. Malin Ackerman stops paying attention to the road and looks over the headshots and says, hey, careful, those are expensive.
They are. They're so fucking expensive.
Yeah. And then I wrote in my notes, I guess we're going to have to turn back the clock on how many episodes it's been since Todd talked about his dead brother, because she gets in a car wreck. Like they wreck and her mom dies.
Yeah.
It's real sad. We don't see it. What we see is like, we see the wreck and then we see a car flipping over and over and over on its side, which would definitely, that's like the most dangerous way to be in an accident, because usually you're thrown out of the windows.
Yeah.
And sometimes the car comes over and crushes you. Like it can be very, very dangerous. We don't see any of that though, because what we see is is it looks like if you typed into if you were doing a story on Instagram and typed in car crash, it would it's the same effects that they use in this movie for that kind of
Yeah,
gif.
yeah.
It's that kind of thing. It doesn't look great is all I'm saying. It's fine. I get the point.
It don't look good.
From a storytelling standpoint, I do understand that her mom is dead, but it doesn't look great.
In the speed of it, because it happens so fast, I didn't realize it was the headshots. And now that I know it's the printed headshots, I'm those are expensive. This doesn't happen as much in the industry anymore, because a lot of things are digitized now.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But back in the day, and this is right around when I first moved to LA, you would have headshots taken. That takes a few $100s minimum.
I was going to say a few $100s is cheap.
It is cheap. That's the cheapest headshot you can get is somewhere between $400 and $500. And that's one look.
You could probably get them done in Nashville for $300, but I can see why that, it makes sense it would be cheaper than LA.
I'll say that in LA in 2012, it was $300.
Yeah.
But that was 20 years ago, or 10 years ago.
You have way more demand out there for it. So I bet the people who do that service can ask more for it. That makes sense to me.
Well, and they're really good at it too. They know what they're doing. They know what the studios are looking for or whatever.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
But so that's the first thing is you would pay to have new headshots done. Then, because it wasn't really digitized yet, it very soon after would be. You would then go to a printing place specifically to print headshots. And they would charge you by the number of headshots you printed.
Yeah.
And you needed the original prints from your headshot photographer. And printing them would cost you potentially another $1,000 depending on what you're printing and how many.
And how many you want, of course. Yeah, so that probably cost her $1,500.
Probably.
Conservatively.
To
do all that, And she is it's definitely positioned that she is a struggling actress, right? They were just talking about not being able to pay a $175-ish bill.
Yeah.
So that's an investment for her. I got why she was concerned about it.
Well, and you then hand them out. You don't get them back. You just hand them out. So it's just a constant loss.
Yeah.
So when you hear about people being I couldn't afford it, I had to move home. The minimum to maybe get into the door for a meeting is about $1,500, and that's not counting your rent, your whatever. So yeah, that was super expensive.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's a real bummer that she spilled on those, but also then the car accident, obviously.
It's also a real bummer that her mom died, Paige. So
if the car accident hadn't happened, they would have had a lot more bills to worry about. It would have been bad.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess what you're saying is it's good that her mom died, so she wouldn't get in trouble for that. You're right.
No, I'm just saying I understand the mom's immediate reaction of I could never afford.
Oh yeah, no, same.
To fix that, basically, you're just fucked.
I have definitely been in the car by myself drinking a Diet Coke or something and spilled that and done something similar, looked away and yelled at myself probably.
I have a plot theory that I would like to float past you.
Float it, baby. Tell me everything.
They both die in the accident.
I love it.
I'm going to tell you that there's nothing that proves that they don't both die in the accident.
I definitely do think there's nothing that proves that they don't. The movie is not telling us that, but
right.
If you go with I guess possibly Jacob's Ladder situation of it all, you could play it off that way.
I think you could argue that maybe she also died in the accident. I think a better argument is that they all died in the fire. All of them.
Yeah.
They are dead. They are in purgatory. That's what the movie is. But anyway, so 3 years later, she wakes up. She lives with her aunt's house. Her friend Gertie comes over. It is maybe from Arrested Development, Alia Shawkat, and they're going to study or not. They then go to this Frost Stop root beer place. All of it. The reason I say maybe she died in the accident is because everything in their town looks very movie. It does not look real. It's this fun diner or this fun movie theater. And this it's a very heightened version of reality, even within what they're saying is real, as opposed to the scene we just saw in the car accident in a strip mall.
See, I read that heightening of it as this is an anime, but I definitely understand what you're seeing.
I don't watch enough anime to like make that jump. It's not a format that I enjoy particularly. Oof. And so, yeah.
Missing out, Paige.
I have tried. It's just not for me most of the time.
Yeah, I honestly don't watch near as much as I used to and honestly would want to. And I do feel like a lot of anime movies specifically are a huge blind spot for me. And I have some really good friends. They're all online friends, but like who will give me recommendations and I'll watch them and I'll just bawl because they're like way more emotional movies than I think I expected.
Sure.
When I was like, because I kind of grew up on like anime-ish, at least anime-ish inspired cartoons, you know, like.
Right.
So like I was into that kind of stuff growing up, but I never got into the movies. Anyway.
Yeah.
But I was fine with it because of that.
Again, not my genre.
Yeah.
So that's not how I read it. I read it as like, interesting. We have a definitive visual change. So maybe did she survive the car accident or did she not? And the movie doesn't come down either way.
Well, maybe it wasn't in the car accident. It was just Malin Ackerman and Max. Maybe he was in the car with her 3 years later.
I know.
Okay, so I did actually know what you meant. I just really wanted to make that joke from Arrested Development, so I apologize for making...
Her?
Yeah. I'm sorry, but let me say this. When she wakes up and it's 3 years later, and you hear someone off camera yell, "Hey, somebody's here," or whatever, and she goes, "Thanks, Aunt Rose."
Yep.
And then the next character we see is maybe from Arrested Development. I was like, is that Aunt Rose? Because she looks the same age-ish
They're the same age.
This person.
She's not. We never meet Aunt Rose.
No, we don't. I bet it was just some person they got to yell into a mic from outside the room. Like, yeah.
I'm just saying, given the visual heightening of these scenes, if the end instead was that we found out that she died in the car accident and Malin Ackerman's, or she's in a coma and Malin Ackerman's sitting by her hospital bed hoping she comes back, I would accept that as an ending too.
What? Paige. I mean, and that's the ending we could get at the end of The Final Girls 2.
We could absolutely get that ending.
I'm a little bummed that we're probably not ever going to get a Final Girls 2.
Never. There's never going to be a sequel to this.
God, I would love that. I really liked this movie a lot.
I want to send you... and I should probably get permission first. But I just read a script and it was like one of the few good scripts I've read this season.
Yeah.
But it's for a movie that very much plays in this kind of a vibe where it's very much an homage, but it's grounded in a real world, but it's set in the 90s. And they did so much research for the nostalgia. I was like cheering. I was so happy reading it, but I will send it to you.
Awesome. Yeah, please do.
So they're studying mythology. This is where we get the story of Persephone, which again, I was like, did she die in the car accident? Like, maybe she did because Persephone has to go to Hades. And I'm just like, is this what? But they never. Anyway.
I think they set this up because they want you to think at the end of this movie she can save her mother's life. And they do make you think that.
I never thought she could.
I never thought she could either, because I feel like that would very much break the rules of the world, honestly, that they created.
Yes.
So I didn't think they would either, but I think that that's why they set this up. Because she does go into, quote, hell to sort of get through this, bringing her mother back. What she is doing is learning how to move forward without having that presence in her life, which is one of the reasons it makes me sob at the end, because that's like how you manage grief. And it's so difficult to do that work. So to me, it was like, this movie is 3 years later and she is like ready to do the work around the grief around losing her mom. And fuck, that's so hard to do.
Well, yeah, and it lands that emotional story so well.
It does well. And both Malin Ackerman and Tessa Farmiga do a great, I mean, everyone does a great job.
Do.
I actually really love Chris in this film.
Chris is great.
Chris's face anytime he's scared is so good.
Yeah.
He looks
nailing it.
Fucking scared every time you see him. Anyway, he's great.
Fucking terrified. So Chris is there while they're studying. Chris clearly has a crush on her.
Well, because it's clear that like these are like the two will they won't they's of the trope. You know what I'm saying? Like that is what this is.
Yes.
And I do love that maybe from Arrested Development was like, so was he like, hey, we should meet up and study? Or he was like, hey, maybe we should meet up and study my dick, or whatever she says in the scene.
Right.
I think she says that one actually in the closing credits as like a blooper. I can't remember what she said in the actual scene, but it was more or less that. And so like, then we cut to them and it's like very clear Chris is into her.
Yes.
And Tessa Farmiga is doing the thing of like, no, he's just trying to help me because I'm not doing great in this class and I have to pass or whatever. And it's like, it's so clear Chris would like love to take this lady on a date.
Yes.
Without maybe from Arrested Development.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we've established that there's kind of a thing with Chris, but then who should show up? Thomas Middleditch being the most insensitive because he's like, hey, your friend maybe, aka Gertie, promised that you would be at this thing, which is also not great for Gertie to do, to promise that she'll be there.
I got the vibe heavily that Gertie did not promise that.
And he was trying to guilt her into it. That's fair.
Yeah, that he realized his stepsister had a friend who was like beneficial to who he is in this world, right?
Right.
And so he was just like, well, she can seal that for me. I'm going to go ahead and tell people that she's going to be there and then hold them to that.
Yes.
Like they actually agreed to it. Like that is his vibe in this movie. It's like, hey, Gertie told me you'd do this thing, so be there at 7. And Gertie's like, what?
Yeah.
I didn't tell you anything like that.
Well, and we revealed that this is the anniversary of her mom's death, and it's basically a showing of the movie. And I was like, I feel like she probably doesn't want to watch her mom die on screen on the anniversary of her mom's tragic death.
I do think that, like, I could see her in maybe, I mean, I don't know, people grieve in different ways, but like maybe 3 years, maybe 10 years, maybe 15 years. She might want to do a screening to honor her mother, but I probably would assume it wouldn't be on the date of her death.
It might be. I mean, like...
Because, like, anniversary of death like that, though, that is still hard.
Yeah.
My brother died a long time ago, and I remember, like, the day of the accident and then the day he died, which is like 2-ish, 3 days later. If you're counting days, it's 3. If you're counting hours, it's less. But like, I will be like on August 2nd, I'll be like sad and I don't know why. And then I'll look at a calendar and be like, oh, fuck. Okay, that's probably why. So it's like the residualness of it, like over time, you may forget about the date, but you still feel it. Like the body like definitely kept that score. You know what I'm saying? So like, I think it's like hugely insensitive that it's 3 years later. It's so soon. And like,
it's so soon.
It is literally the anniversary. I honestly think Thomas Middleditch's vibe is like he would wheel out a black cake at the end of that Q&A he asked her to do and sing Happy Death Day to to her. Like he is a monster, Paige.
He's a monster. Well, and I think it's also the nature of the movie, right? Because like Billie Lourd does Star Wars screenings and things to honor her mom. And it's very, very sweet. But I also think about like those movies show her in a powerful light and a positive light. And there's a lot of love around that character.
Yes.
And love for the franchise.
She was a strong feminine figure in the fucking 70s and early 80s. Yeah. I would be proud if that was my mom on screen, you know? Like,
I think it's a little bit different when her mom in this movie gets stabbed to death on a waterbed halfway through. And it's
after having to see Adam Devine's lavender underwear and his pants pulled down to just his like thighs.
They nail his character so well, though.
I know.
So well.
Adam Devine is another one of those guys who's crushing
But he's also basically Adam DeMamp from Workaholics this entire movie. I don't hate it. As a Workaholics and Gemstone fan, I'm here for it.
Agreed. I honestly feel like he's halfway between Adam DeMamp and the character he plays in Gemstones. He's like right in that middle because he's still got the like machismo-ness like turned up to 11.
Right.
It's not, there isn't so much of that like, is he into that guy type energy in this? Although there is some of it, Paige.
Let's break this down though.
Okay.
Because Adam DeMamp in Workaholics is woefully underexperienced sexually, and it is an ongoing joke of the show. And like, I feel like this movie has him more confident. I feel like DeMamp is always saying that he can do things, but then the reality is very much not.
Yes.
In this movie, I feel like he's going to follow through on it. I think Kelvin also is a little bit maybe not as confident, but like is going to say that he is. And he's got even a little more machismo than DeMamp does. But this is the first time that I think we've got that attitude and that kind of like characterization where he's like, no, I'm going to follow through on it.
Yeah.
And that's really funny to me. Like, he's hysterical.
I'll say this about him in this movie specifically. I did not realize how much he could do with his face.
Oh,
and I realize that sounds weird, but he is making some...
No, dude's got a wild face.
Yeah, he is like making some of the most heightened faces I've seen since like Ace Ventura. Like, it's that level of like performative, like overreaction on his face. And it's like, it's not too much for the movie though.
No, it's great.
Like he knows exactly what he needs to do and he's crushing it. But I was honestly a little impressed. I was like, damn, like that is, he looks like a cartoon at some moments.
He does.
Yeah.
It's really fun. But it is also the like the gross out face and the like, it's a lot. It's great.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
But essentially Thomas Middleditch is like, I'll do your homework for the year and get you through classics so you don't fail if you come and do this screening and do the Q&A. And she's like, fine.
Literally, like, I'll help you graduate college, more or less, because that's like one of the last classes she needs or whatever.
I think is it high school or college?
Oh, I think it's high school. I'm so sorry. I think it's high school.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Just because 3 years, I was like,
Yeah. Oh, no, it's probably college. It's probably college because she looks like she's in high school in the beginning of the movie, in the car accident. Yeah.
But if she's in danger of graduating.
In danger of graduating, Paige? Shouldn't that be the goal?
No, in danger of not graduating
Yeah.
if she doesn't pass classics. And I'm like, but 3 years means that either she was already in college when her mom was struggling, which I doubt because she couldn't afford it.
Well, I don't know. She could have gotten loans. I don't know. Yeah, maybe she was a freshman in college or who knows?
Or I'm like, if she's in high school, it makes more sense to me because that's why she's still living with the aunt.
Yeah.
That she was with the mom. Some people had classics in high school. And so like, if that's the class she needs to graduate high school, that makes a lot of sense, especially when she like with the friends that she has and the teenager friends that she has where they're like, you shut me out.
Yeah.
And, now we're about to graduate. To me, it read high school.
Yeah, I think that's fair. No, I think that's fair.
Anyway, the theater is showing Camp Bloodbath 1 and 2, which should be our clue that the sequel is the end. And I did love that we bookended that.
I love that the sequel is specifically like Halloween 2.
Halloween 2.
Yeah. Because I do feel like the first movie is like Friday the 13th.
Part 2.
Yeah, well, yeah, but it's that world. It's the Friday the 13th world.
Yes.
And then the sequel is the Halloween world.
The reason I say part 2 is because if you remember correctly, Friday the 13th part 1 is Pamela Voorhees.
It is. It's not
Jason.
It's not Jason. Yeah.
So, most people don't remember that though. So we'll give it a pass. Anyway, Chris shows up, and even though she didn't necessarily invite him, but he's there because he's like, hey, this might be a tough time for you.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and be here, with you. And she does say, he's like, are you okay? You get to honor her memory. And she's like, at least I get to see her.
And it did seem like she goes to this not expecting to see Chris. Like Chris shows up and is really there. He might actually like the movie too. I don't think he really gets into it, but he's there, it's seemingly to support her and what he knows is like going to be a difficult night for her. And if it's not clear to her at this point he's into her, I'm not sure there's more he could do except for just like flat out telling her, which honestly he probably should do.
Yeah.
But he is really thoughtful and caring towards her this whole movie. And I like it, honestly.
I like it a lot.
Because on the flip side of that, it really makes Adam Devine's character look like a monster.
Yes.
And that is like the kind of guy you saw in those movies. And it wasn't positioned like that was necessarily a bad thing.
I love that they don't give Adam Devine any sort of redemption arc. He's that guy the whole time. And I was like, that's exactly the guy from these movies. Like, that is him.
Chris like calls him out on it. Like they don't give him a pass for his behavior either, which I really enjoyed.
Yes. Yeah. It's done really well. It's really funny.
It is.
So who should show up but Vicky, played by Nina Dobrev, and her new boyfriend Tyson, who will disappear as soon as we have met him.
Paige, Tyson's not inconsequential. Like he is definitely like so funny. Her abs hurt all day, Paige.
All day.
It's very clear that like they were driving by. Vicky saw Chris, her ex, and was like, stop the car. So she rolled down the window and is shouting at her ex-boyfriend about this new guy she's, quote, talking to.
Yes.
And Paige, I don't know if you picked up on this, but when she said that Tyson's the funniest person she's ever met, if you look at Tyson, he looks like the most unfunny person alive.
100%.
And I'm sure they did that on purpose. I'm sure they wanted that to come across.
He just stares into the middle distance. It's great.
It looks like there's not a thought in his head. And I'm sure that's what they were going for because it's so funny.
Well, and I love that like moments later, she appears in the theater without Tyson. She's like, oh yeah, don't worry about it. And just handfuls of Adderall. And I'm like, girl, you got to be careful with that shit. You'll get a heart attack.
Yeah.
Like,
I did think it was really funny that she was like, yeah, he got really sick really quick. And
super sick, super fast.
Yeah. And then Tessa Farmiga's like, yeah, that's going around or something like that.
Yep. But she's clearly there to try and steal Chris back.
Yeah, and she's working overtime because Chris is like super thoughtful and it's like, hey, I'm going to go get some popcorn. Would you like anything? To Tessa.
He shuts it down immediately. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. He is clearly not going to pursue Vicky at all in this movie, which I liked.
Right.
And so he asks Tessa Farmiga, would you like anything from the concessions? And he starts to go that way. And Vicky is like, make sure to get me a baby popcorn, but dump half of it out, my regular order or whatever. I'll just come with you. It's fine.
Oh,
and so they go off together.
This is where Thomas Middleditch comes up and is like, you're going to do the Q&A after. Great. Bye. And she's like, oh God. But as he walks away, he tries to jump over a rope, like for a line, and tangles his feet in it.
Yeah.
And does amazing pratfall. I was dying. I was like, oh my God, dude committed.
He actually does it in the scene. You see his feet get trapped up in the velvet rope that's like separating the backstage area or whatever. They're trying to use that rope to block off. And he does fall to the ground. Like, he commits. I saw Ben Schwartz and him came through town when they were doing their Middleditch and Schwartz touring long form improv show. And both of them like would commit to physical bits that I guarantee you left
bruises,
marks on their body for a laugh. So when I saw him do that, I was like, man, still committing, and I love him for it. Like that.
I was like, damn, dude. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, we start the movie and it's the scene where Adam Devine and her mom are hanging out, but then we cut to the flashback in 1957 of how Billy came to be.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting the way that they position this fire in the theater, because there's a scene in the movie where she goes to light a candle.
Yes.
She lights a lighter and people in the theater do it as if they're doing it along with her, which like I have been to many screenings of things like this. I think those things are so fun to do it along with someone in the movie.
Famously, like Rocky Horror Picture Show does it. I'm sure there are others, and you live in like the city that's going to do probably 1,000 different movies.
I've been to a Scott Pilgrim one where they had to tell people to stop throwing coins because it hit people. People also used to throw spoons during The Room, if you went and saw a screening of The Room.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's one of my favorite things like that because it's just like a picture on the wall that they clearly bought at like a TJ Maxx or something that's just like spoon, fork, knife, and people just yell spoon and throw spoons whenever they see it in the background.
Yes.
Very fun. When I saw Fresh live in a theater, I think that's going to get that treatment given the audience reaction as I sat through it, where like that, first of all, sold the fuck out.
Yeah.
And people were fucking amped. And half the people there had never seen the movie and the other half had seen the movie. And so in the scenes where he's like, oh, I don't eat animals, people would like, woo, like cheer, like they knew it was coming, and it was hilarious. If you get a chance to see Fresh with a theater audience, absolutely do it. It plays full as a comedy. It's great.
Love that.
But I could picture them doing like cherries or like other stuff like that, or, you know, chanting for meats.
You mean for his tattoo?
Oh, for this it could be tattoo. I was thinking in.
Well, no, he's got those cherry tattoos.
Well, yeah, because he takes virginity. But no, I was still talking about Fresh, where she eats the maraschino cherries.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, you could do that too.
Yeah. Oh, cherries for his tattoo would be great. But they light the lighter when she lights the lighter to light her candles. And it's because there's a little close-up of it. So that's super fun.
It is cool, but they position it like this is sort of what starts the process of them entering the movie world.
Right.
But I mean, it's like you see Adam Devine drinking, and then you see someone drinking like vodka.
Along with him, yeah.
Yeah, along with him. And then he drops the vodka and it starts to spill and rolls down and hits like the curtain up front. And then you see someone smoking.
And the guy with the lighter ashed a cigarette, and the cigarette ash hits the vodka. The entire theater goes up.
Oh, yeah. That theater goes from, you know, whatever this movie is,
to Inglourious Bastards in like 2 seconds.
I was literally going to say it goes from this to Pride of a Nation, which is the movie that you go to watch, or maybe it's Nation's Pride or whatever. I don't know. But whatever movie they're watching in Inglourious Bastards. Yeah. I was like, oh my God, is Hitler there? Don't look up. They're going to be shooting down at you from the balcony. Get under the seats, Tessa Farmiga.
Yeah.
Anyway, I had that same thought because it does go up insanely fast.
It does. When I did coverage on Inglourious Bastards, it still had the extra 2 storylines that are only now in the published script version, but didn't make it into the movie.
The shooting scripts, yeah.
Yeah, and one of them is that the projectionist and Shoshana are in love, and they specifically plan to set the theater on fire, and so they like strategically set stuff up, and you follow their whole plan, and it's really interesting.
That's great.
Kind of bummed it didn't end up in the movie, but it was really good.
Yeah. Warmer, sunnier days are coming. Fuel up for them with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals in time for summer. Well, let's call it fall. Thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto, Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. Guys, you can make your day delicious from breakfast to dessert. Stay fueled with easy, nutritious options, all while keeping kitchen time to a minimum. Factor's meals are ready to go in 2 minutes. No shopping, prepping, cooking, or cleaning up. So head to factormeals.com/horrorvirgin50 and use code horrorvirgin50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code HorrorVirgin50 at factormeals.com/HorrorVirgin50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month's while your subscription's active.
Hey, I'm Jake Johnson, host of the podcast We're Here to Help. But this episode right now that you are listening to is sponsored by Brooklinen. Brooklinen provides luxury bed sheets, pillows, comforters, and blankets delivered straight to your door. How do I know this? Because Brooklinen delivered me a quilt, sheets, pillowcases, and I love them. Plus, Brooklinen has been tested and awarded by experts, including Good Housekeeping, GQ, Wirecutter, and the hosts of We're Here to Help. So listeners can save a ton by purchasing a hardcore bundle, which includes a core sheet set, which is the thing I got, extra pillowcases, and a duvet cover. You can also mix and match. They do this stripe thing that's cool, but that's a dealer's choice. So are you ready to build your dream fall bed? Visit in-store or online at brooklinen.com. That's brooklinen.com, BROOKLINEN.com. Get 15% off your first Brooklinen order and save extra when you bundle.
Anyway, so they're trying to escape. All the exits are blocked. And Tessa Farmiga says, well, isn't there an exit behind the screen? Fun fact, in many movie theaters, there is, especially if it's an old movie theater where it also probably has a backstage. There's almost always an exit. If you remember from the movie Sandlot, where they're being chased and there's the werewolf and they cut through that's how, because there's usually an exit back there. So they pick up a machete that someone had brought, which in most screenings like this, they usually are like, no weapons. Like, because I've been to Star Wars ones with lightsabers and they're like, someone always gets hurt. Like, it's all fun and games till someone takes a lightsaber to the eye. Anyway, so they drop the machete.
Yeah.
They grab it. They cut through the screen. They walk through and they walk into a very heightened version of the movie. Now, this is where I would have preferred a grainier version than the sunnier version, but I'll take it.
Yeah. When you said that earlier, I had the thought it would have been cool if they had like whatever budget they needed to do this, because you're right, I do have the budget and it's not huge, right? If they had switched from digital to film in this moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know that's so expensive.
And from film and then also fully practical effects in this world. I would have loved it because that's what it was like in the 80s. And I bet like if they had whatever budget they wanted, they probably either would have changed it to do that or at least had those conversations, you know?
Yeah.
Because film is so much more expensive to shoot on. It's like cost prohibitive. And at that time, because I think this was like 2015, it was really hard to make digital film look like film.
It's much easier to do it now than it was then.
Yeah.
Well, and for me, because we do have the heightened sense of the real world where they've got the root beer place and the theater and all that is heightened visually from where we opened. So it would have been an even more marked change for them to go into the grainy filmed look. I just think they maybe couldn't do it the way they wanted to because it looks like Sonic the Hedgehog.
I mean, that's fair. I don't think that's necessarily wrong. It just doesn't bother me.
Well, and oddly, something from I guess a little before this, not quite the same time. There's a section of True Blood where they spend time in the fairy world. This looks like the fairy world, but it's something that they used to do at that time where they're like extra lighting and they're gold toning everything. And the complaint when it happened on True Blood is everyone was like, it looks like a tampon commercial. So people would be like, fairy world looks like a tampon commercial. This looks like an allergy medicine commercial.
It does sort of look like that, but only after you take the medication, Paige.
Right.
It's really just like you know when you take a photo and you go in to edit it to make like the lighting better or whatever on your iPhone.
Yeah.
And then you play with the saturation button too much. It's like you went to the saturation setting and turning it up.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like.
But you had to turn the saturation up and then the warmth up because it's all extra warm.
Yeah.
I think they're trying to get to, because film is always warmer.
Yes.
Just especially in the 80s, everything was color corrected, very warm. And I think maybe that's what they're trying to do, and they just don't quite stick the landing. But they're like, where the hell are we? What is happening? And then the VW bus pulls up.
Yeah.
And they talk to Adam Devine and Tina, and then it pulls away. And I do love the way that Thomas Middleditch, who is basically the Jamie Kennedy of this movie, the way that he immediately is like, sets the timer of like 92 minutes.
Yes.
It comes around every night. Like, this is a time loop. We are in the movie. Like, he immediately figures it out.
Yeah, which I actually sort of appreciated it because I want to get into like playing around in like Last Action Hero meets Groundhog Day.
Oh,
like,
yes.
what is that world like? Because that's more or less what this is on some level, with a little Home Alone thrown in. In that like beginning of the third act. But like, I really dug that. I did feel like that sort of makes it when we actually do go with the camp counselors, you know, like the Adam Devine, Nancy, her mom, you know, all of that. If all of that's supposed to happen in 92 minutes, it seems like it takes place over the course of a few days, right? So like, they don't really account for like the time jumpage in movies at all.
That's true. They don't.
Once they get in the van, they live in the time reality that the camp counselors are playing in, right? But before they get in the van, it is just the runtime of the movie, you know?
Yeah.
Which is interesting to me. I do think that causes a lot of problems if you have to solve for how do we account for the jump cuts from like day to night, right? But
this is also something that I know I had it in my notes, but I didn't have it until here. So her mom's name is Nancy, obviously named after Nancy from Nightmare on Elm Street.
Of course, yeah.
And it made me wish that everyone had final people or final girl names.
What do you mean? Oh, you mean like, yeah, so if like Adam Devine's character was the guy from Nightmare on Elm Street 2, you know, like the...
or like, you know, what's the annoying guy in Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Franklin.
Because we've got, you know, Max is an interesting name, and I'm sure there's probably some significance to it. We'll talk about it in fun facts. But we have a Gertie that could be a Sydney.
True.
Or could be an Ellen for like Ellen Ripley, or could be a Sarah for Sarah Connor. Like, everyone could have had a final girl name and it would have been kind of inobtrusive.
Yeah.
Anyway, they do pile into the van because at this point, now that they're like, we live in the world of the movie, it's a time loop. I think we have to play the movie out. So let's go with them to whatever the next location is.
Yeah.
They get in the van. She sees her mom. It's very, very sweet. But they show up at the camp. And I do love that the titles still show up. The titles being an active part of the reality of the scene in a spatial way is great. And it's something that I'm not going to say stole, but I am going to say that we probably don't get this piece of this without getting Scott Pilgrim about 4 years before this, where also dialogue and text on the screen is a physical manifestation of that text.
It's touchable.
Yeah, it's touchable.
Like we see at one point in this movie where like they fall
trips
into
over the
it.
subtitle.
Yeah.
I loved it so much.
It was so funny. Yeah, it was so funny.
He trips over the chyron is what it is.
Yes.
It was so fun. But at this point, Thomas Middleditch, the main nerd of this movie, is like, it's 1986. None of us exist yet. This is going to happen. She shows her boobs. Then so-and-so gets killed. Everything is on schedule. Everyone who has sex in this movie dies.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's awesome. And he's like, what if we take the van and bail? And I love that Adam Devine is just like, what's in it for me? Go find the keys. And like throws them. I was like, well, now you can't use the van either. But that's definitely something that's happened in multiple slashers.
For sure. That sounds, I don't know that this happened, That's got a real Madman Mars vibe, is all I will say.
Yeah, I was trying to remember because I was like, I know this has happened. I just can't think of specific instances.
Yeah, me either.
I know it happened in Deadstream.
Oh, yeah, it does happen in Deadstream. But I really like that in this movie, they're standing in like a field where like the house is. There's a lake behind them. They're like in the middle of like open area, right?
Right.
He throws the keys and is like, if you can find him, you can take the van. And then when they're looking for them, they're like deep in the forest.
Well, yeah.
They are nowhere close to where those keys could even possibly be.
Yep. And as they go to pick up the key, they're like, glad you die. And he's like, what?
It's like, what are you talking about?
We all do someday. Like,
You know, in the Sylvia Plath sense is what we're talking about.
We all wear masks, metaphorically speaking. They all split up and kind of pair up with different people in the movie. So Max goes with her mom and is just like, hey, she's like, Kurt told me he wants to do it later. She's like, you should not do that. Please don't do it. She's like, well, I can't stay a virgin forever. She's like, just don't. She's like, Tina's done it twice today and she's fine. And we cut to Tina, who is paired up with Nina Dobrev. And Tina is just grinding on Chris, who is just standing there looking uncomfortable.
Yeah. It's like she thinks he paid a lot for this dance and he has no idea what's happening. That's the vibe.
He has no clue.
Yeah.
Well, and she is the person in these types of movies that is two-dimensional, that no one has given any other character traits to other than she's the horny girl. And so she's just like, yeah, she's all over. I do love that, like, Adam Devine, or I guess Kurt is his character's name, is just like, yeah, I don't know who these people are, but her hair is flat and it's making me sad. It's like, I love that. Some of the asides in this are so funny.
Well, when they're in the van, he's also the guy. Adam Devine is the guy who goes,
"Are you guys poor?
Are you guys poor? Are you guys poor? Because your clothes are terrible."
Yeah. Well, and so in this section where he's like flat hair, Malin Ackerman has a clipboard and is like, they're not on the roster. None of these people are counselors. I don't know where they came from. But as they kind of regroup after kind of talking to everybody, they see that one girl, they call her Strawberry Girl, and I don't remember her name, but she's going off into the woods to pick strawberries. And they're like, wait, we saw this part in the movie. She's going to encounter that hiker. They're going to hook up in the woods and then she's going to die. And at this point, Thomas Middleditch is like, we have to not we can't disrupt the movie.
Yeah.
Like, we can make sure that it's proceeding on time, but we shouldn't involve ourselves. We shouldn't stop stuff.
Like, we can be observers here, but we shouldn't step in and help. We should stay out of it.
Yeah. My favorite, though, is when their Jason stand-in, Billy, just like snaps that guy's neck. And then she turns around and goes, where's the beef, daddy?
Oh.
I was like, oh my God.
I know. Because that was probably a commercial whenever that movie came out, right? So like, literally turns around, where's the beef, daddy? And then like doesn't see him. And so like, she's like looking for him and then starts to say it again. And that's when she gets killed. She's like, where's the stab? It's so funny.
Oh God. Well, no, he chokes her. Like he lifts and chokes her and throws the body. This is one of the few places that there is blood because they're like, oh, I bet it's fake blood. It's just corn syrup. They're like, that is real blood. Oh no.
Yes. And then, but like Billy is frozen behind them as they're having this conversation.
Just waiting for someone else to take a top off.
Yes, I think so.
Yes.
And so like nobody does, but like I think Middleditch goes over there and that's right. He's going to taste the corn syrup, but it's actually blood.
Yeah.
And so he turns around, but he's way closer.
Right.
And so it's like, is Billy going to get him? And then Billy walks up and they have this like moment. And Billy's like, are you going to take your top off or not? And Middleditch doesn't, so he leaves.
Right.
And then we get a little bit more of the rules from Middleditch, and then we see the machete get thrown at him.
Just right at it.
Yeah.
We find out that, and I do, this is another reason why I wish it looked like film, even if it wasn't film.
Yeah.
Because he mentions, he's like, in the next reel, which means that they were watching this on film. In the next reel, the final girl, Paula, shows up, and she's the only one who doesn't die. And they describe this amazing, like, she like kicks the machete up and slices his head open, his brains explode, like all this stuff. And this is when the machete comes and just gets him in the side. And they're like, oh no, they all run.
Yeah.
And at this point, they're like, Billy's not the problem. The movie won't let us leave. We have to play this movie out.
Yeah.
And Duncan, AKA Thomas Middleditch, is dead as far as we know, although that will prove not to be true later on. So they run back to the main camp. Who should show up? Paula. And Paula is like the badass.
80s badass though. So
80s
she's like
badass.
Like driving a great car. She's got a leather jacket that I want.
She's got like a Firebird. Yeah, it was amazing.
She gets out of the car, has like the big hair, smoking a cigarette. It's like every picture your mom kept of herself because she thought she looked badass.
Yes.
This is her vibe in that photo.
Yes. Well, and as she's kind of making her way through, and Nina Dobrev is now going to hang out with her to try and stay close to her because she thinks that's how she'll survive. We get them kind of spread out amongst the other counselors again and get more about them. And we get Chris. This is where we get Chris and Adam Devine's character, Kurt, looking at Playboy.
Yeah.
And Chris is like, the articles are actually really interesting. And he's just like, look at them nice big hoots. And he's just like, yeah, no, I'm kind of not. And he's like, what are you, insert gay slur here.
Yeah.
And he's like, actually, both my dads are gay. And I do love that Kurt is just like, what? I mean, it seems like a cool lifestyle because I think Kurt is closeted.
This is the moment I had that thought too, because he's like, I mean, I guess it's fine. It's just like hang out with your friends and then have sex all the time. So
just
I guess
dudes hanging out and having sex all the time.
Sounds great, honestly. Like
real cool lifestyle.
Yeah. He may not be gay. He may not be closeted, but he definitely seems he's going to take the pamphlet. He'd like to know more. Like it's like that.
He's tri-curious.
It's like on that line. You know what I'm saying? He might not be, but he's definitely maybe open to it.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
I do love the camper that Gertie gets connected to, and I don't even know that we get his full name, but he's absolutely modeled after Miguel Nunez Jr. from Friday the 13th Part 5, but also from Return of the Living Dead. In Friday the 13th Part 5, he's the one that is in the van and ate the enchiladas and gets killed in the porta potty.
Yeah.
But this character absolutely looks like him with like the earring and all of it. I'm like, that's definitely who they're modeling this after. And I think that's very fun.
His name is Blake in the movie.
Okay, Blake.
Yeah, but I had to look it up. I'm not sure they say it. And because he has a name, I bet they say it once, but I missed it, you know?
Either way.
Yeah.
We cut to Tina, who is literally just like has her headphones in and is at this point they're like, wait, she does a striptease later in the movie. So this is where they're starting to try and like, you shouldn't, you can't. Like, and they put her in the life vest first and then the oven mitts second.
Yeah, so she can't get out of the life vest and expose them tibbies, Paige.
Yes.
What is she, you? Talking to a fan last night? Come on.
Look, hey.
Did you think I forgot, Paige? Did you think I forgot?
They were very kind and looked me in the eyes the entire time. I did not anticipate to be that see-through in the presence of someone who listens to my podcasts.
Honestly?
But I appreciated their politeness and decorum.
That person now has an amazing story. Oh, you listen to Cult Podcast? Oh, yeah, I saw her boobies.
I saw her full-ass boobs.
Yeah.
Anyway. They have her in the oven mitts, and at this point, they start talking to Paula, and she's like, hey, so are there any, like, chainsaws around or whatever? And like,
yeah, like, we should get weapons. I mean, at this point in the movie, I would be like, oh, okay, so Billy has to die. So let's all go kill Billy. Let's, like, crew up and kill Billy, because, like, you know, 7 dogs can take down a lion. We could probably take him if we took him together.
I mean, if you'll remember from Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason dispatches, like, 7 full-ass cops with guns and just keeps popping up.
Paige, whenever I see this type of thing where it's like, well, maybe not even this type of thing, but what I just sort of suggested they do, where they all crew up and go after it, I always remember the beginning of the second of the most recent trilogy in the Halloween movies.
Yeah.
Where the firefighters are like trying to put out the fire that Michael Myers is like trapped in, and he just straight up murks 90 of them.
Yep.
Like he just destroys them. And they have like fire picks and stuff that like can be used as weapons too.
Yes.
So like if we're playing by like slasher rules, they definitely would have died that way too, and I get it. But like in real life, that's what I would have done.
Yes. But we cut to the bedroom where her mom has lit that lighter, just like we saw in the movie. So we know that she's about to maybe give it up to Adam Devine on the waterbed and get killed.
Yes.
But Max is like, don't do it. She's like, you're special. You're special to me. We don't need to do this. And who should show up at Adam Devine with his creepy cherry tattoo? Because he takes people's virginity, which again is a social construct, but he did get a tattoo about it. Anyway, he's like, 2 for the price of 1. And she's like, no. And then they scream, the genie is out of the bottle.
Oh, that's Adam Devine. I think we don't see it, but I think he takes his dick out of his pants.
I think so too.
And says, the genie's out of the bottle. And that's a horrible thing to say to someone who maybe is, at least from Alan Ackerman, on the fence. But like, her daughter's not. Her daughter's not wanting to be in that interaction at all.
No.
So like, you shouldn't do that. But I'm definitely going to say that at some point in the future.
Sure.
Because it's hilarious.
I think this is what brings Billy out, but he doesn't completely come inside. But this is where he shows up at the window, and Alia Shawkat, aka Gertie, sees him. And so she screams. They all come downstairs, and she's like, he's there. And like, he's going to kill us.
Yeah.
Monsters. It's not good. And they're like, well, sit down. Let's all tell the legend of Billy. And this is where Tina has one of my favorite lines in the movie where she's like, I love legends. Loch Ness, Bigfoot, Bon Jovi, and just sits down. I'm like, girl, yes.
Yeah.
Everything.
She's insane.
But this is where we establish what happens when they go to a flashback.
Yes. And I like how they use the rules to their advantage towards the end. But yeah, this is the first time we see it.
But this is where we see 1957, in the outhouse, they throw fireworks in there. Billy gets burned. And then we get a little bit more to the flashback where he actually goes and kills the counselors.
Yeah.
And probably lives somewhere in camp, but they don't know where. So this is where they're like, we can't leave. It's bad. Like, we're going to have to kill him. What's going to happen? It doesn't end till he's dead.
Yeah.
But now everyone is like, oh my God, we are all going to die. And this is the first time that they like kind of explain to them, like, you guys are in a movie.
Yeah.
We're in a movie and like, we got to kill him. And instead of being like, gear up, let's go kill this fool, they're all like, although we will probably find out that they probably can't. He probably can't die until it's the final girl. But
we never actually get those rules though. So like,
we don't.
I definitely would have tried that.
I would have tried it too.
Yeah.
But Adam Devine and Paula, the hot girl, get in the car and they're like, we're going to fucking leave. And just as they do, Duncan comes out of the forest, he's like, I'm not dead, and immediately gets hit by the car.
Yeah, it's Adam Devine and Paula like flying out of there in her like Thunderbird or whatever car it is.
Yes.
And like just nail him.
Nail him.
It's so funny.
And then Adam Devine goes through the windshield and
Right.
gets pretzeled.
Yeah.
And then the car explodes.
Yes.
And everyone's just like, what the fuck? Like,
because it's positioned that like Paula's the final girl because she is in the movie. And like, so they think it has to be her, right? So like seeing that they're definitely dead.
Right.
So like, what do we do now? And that's when they come up with a plan of like, well, Vicky's going to have to stand up and be the final girl.
yeah. Well, yeah, Max is going to be the final girl.
I know, but Vicky offers herself to survive the movie. And I thought that shit was funny.
She offers herself and they're like, the rules are virgin, even though it's a societal construct. It
Yeah.
can't be you. And she's like, damn it. But this is also where Tina's like, why does he keep killing us? Does he hate my boobs?
Yes.
Like, Tina, I want your movie, girl.
I know.
Like, what is happening? But they nominate Max, and it is Max and her mom, Nancy, because Nancy didn't have sex with Adam Devine.
Right.
So it has now changed the fabric of the movie, which I think is why Max is like, oh, maybe I can bring her back with me. No, you can't, girl. But
Can't.
that's going to influence the new plot of the movie, essentially.
Yeah.
So at this point, they decide. I do love that Nancy's like, well, now I can save myself for George Michael.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, no, I don't. And she's like, why? And they're like, don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. Yeah.
It's fine.
Well, I guess it would be nice if he would touch your body, but he's not into anybody with a body like you, unfortunately.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But you got to have faith. So
Thank you for picking up on what I was putting down there.
you're welcome. They go out. Everyone kind of like has a regroup moment where they're going to kind of gather weapons and set a trap. And she's kind of talking to her out by the tree. And she's like, I'm never going to grow up. Like, I would have wanted to be a mom and whatever.
Yeah.
She's like, I should have known that this camp was weird. What kind of summer camp has water beds? Which is like a great thing to bring up. I fucking love it.
It's a very fair question. Yes.
I love it. But this is where they're like, we're going to set a booby trap. So they start like carving up spears and making arrows and dousing them in alcohol. And they're going to be able to light them. This is where they're like, Tina's the bait. And she tries to give the thumbs up in the oven mitts. And it's so funny.
It's so good.
Her in oven mitts and a life vest is hands down one of the funniest things this movie does.
Agreed.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And I would say if I wanted to lose a scene to make up for time somewhere else to kind of solidify the rules, I'd lose this scene, because this is where Nina Dobrev's character is like, actually, I'm sorry I was mean to you. But it seems very rushed. We didn't have a lot of build up to this. I think it's so that we feel better about her dying later because she's doing it for a good reason.
Yeah.
But we do find out that she covered Gertie's locker in bacon.
Yeah.
And then Gertie was like, don't worry. I told everyone that you have a weird disease that means you're always on your period.
Yeah.
I was like, I think they net zero. I think they're fair now. I think,
They deserve to die together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is also where she's like, when your mom died, you shut down completely and you cut us all out. And I missed you and I got jealous and I'm sorry that I acted out this way.
Yeah.
But this isn't really earned.
No, I not at all. I literally wrote, oh, Vicky's about to die because she's like apologizing for every bad thing she's ever done.
Yes.
And she's been terrible up to this point, the whole movie.
It's her episode of Drag Race where she's going to look into the mirror during makeup time and be like, I never really had a family.
And then you're like, oh, someone's about to sashay away, my friend.
Someone's about to lip sync for their life.
Yeah. Oh, damn. Vicky's opening up about her childhood trauma while putting on makeup. She's definitely not making this week.
Yeah. Nope. Oof. Anyway, I do love that she's like, I'm not the main girl in a horror movie and I'm past the midpoint.
Yeah.
I've overstayed my welcome.
Well, she says I'm the mean girl in a horror movie.
I'm the mean girl.
Yes.
But yeah. I'm the mean girl in a horror movie, past the midpoint. I've overstayed my welcome. Now, meanwhile, back in the house, Tina has found an iPhone and she's like, what is this? And they're like, it's a phone. She's like, I'm not that gullible. Ha ha ha. And then she finds the Adderall.
Yes.
Cut to, they have now assembled all of the weapons. And they're like, oh no, we have a problem. Tina's on fucking Adderall. And we have interrupted Max and her mom, like giving her a friendship bracelet and having this moment of like, I'm going to miss you. Maybe you should come home with me. Maybe everything will be okay. But now we all have to regroup because Tina's on Adderall.
Yeah.
How many did you have? 3, 10, 30? Probably didn't even feel it because of the coke in the 80s. Like
right.
she's probably like normal.
She's probably just now hitting evened out.
Right. But she's like, I'm so much more focused. I got this. I could be the bait. I'm amazing. And there's a fly in the room and she's like immediately tracking it.
I laughed so hard when I realized it was a fly she was tracking. It's so funny.
I'll burn a fun fact. That was improv and ad-libbed in the moment.
God.
She's fucking crushing this.
That's amazing. Good for her.
It's so funny.
Truly amazing. Yeah.
Anyway, she's like, let's go. We're ready to go. I'm going to unleash the beast. And of course, it's Cherry Pie by Warrant.
Perfect song for this section of the movie. And she does like an insane striptease with oven mitts and a life vest. It's so crazy. I loved it.
But she's also definitely like coke teeth grinding like the whole time.
Yeah.
Like she's like, yeah, I'm stripping. And it's so funny.
Yeah.
It is so funny. Like, just because she is doing it. She's on time to the music, but she's like way too intense. And it's so funny. And then she like kind of winces and then like lifts her top up. And who should show up? Billy. But I love the way they like shot this whole thing and framed her in the door. It's so funny. Like, I love it.
I think it's really perfectly done. And you can see that, like, towards the end of it, she's, like, actually kind of getting nervous about it. And, like,
yes,
she's like, oh, my God.
He's going to show up.
If he shows up, he might kill us all. And so, like, she lifts her shirt. The camera zooms in on just her face so you can't see anything. Sorry, Paige. And then we do see Billy sort of walking up and she starts to run back inside. And she hits one of the Home Alone, like, trip traps into a bear trap. Because she like trips into a bear trap and then closes on her head.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would have loved for like just a reverse shot on everyone else in the room and then just a blood pack. Just like
a blood mist? Yeah.
Yes, just everyone is coated in blood.
Yeah.
Like I would have lived.
But there's literally no blood. It's like you said, there's absolutely no blood at all.
Yeah. And like, I get it, but this is one of those where it's like, I don't need the blood on the bear. I need everyone getting
sprayed,
popped with it.
Yeah.
So fun. And like, it's the one thing that's missing. And I think it was to try and get, because this is, I believe, PG-13.
Oh, I mean, it very well could be.
Yeah, I'm verifying, but I'm pretty sure it's PG-13.
I would be a little shocked if it was R, to be honest.
It's PG-13.
Yeah.
It's PG-13. And so that's why there's no blood. That's why there's no titties. And I'm like, I want the R-rated version of this. Like, give me it. Turn it to 11.
Yes.
Do it until I hate it. Anyway, they get him inside. They manage to slam him into the antlers. They like try to take the machete, but of course, Blake gets macheted. Gertie's like, no. And it's because they kissed before he gets macheted. Like, that's the whole reason.
Yeah.
But they shoot arrows. They run upstairs. Gertie and Vicky end up trapped under a bookcase, and he machetes Gertie, and there's like one last arrow, and Vicky basically says, just go.
Yeah.
Like, go. And she and Gertie hold hands as she gets stabbed.
It was honestly a little sweet that they sort of died together like that.
That is, yeah. So they jump out of the second floor of the cabin, and I didn't fully understand what was going on. It took me a second, but they're stuck in slow motion. And I thought that was a great inclusion.
Paige, I thought it was awesome too, because like the room explodes because there's like, I think it's alcohol on the floor. I think it's sort of similar to what happened in the movie theater, because like it's like the whole room explodes, and then Billy jumps out of the window like he's about to light the Olympic torch, but if the Olympic torch was for the X Games.
Yes.
Like he looks like that because his like whole body's on fire. He's holding a knife that's also on fire, or machete. It's crazy. I loved it though. It was great.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
At this point, because he's too close, he's coming after him. They're like, tell the story of his origin again. And they end up in a flashback again.
Yes. But this time intentional. They did this to save themselves.
They did. And I love that he trips over the Chiron and gets hit by the old car in the flashback because they know what's coming and he doesn't.
Yeah.
They do get the machete. They run into the woods, and then she ends the flashback, but then he's still kind of there and they can't get away from him fast enough. He machetes Chris, and then he carries Nancy off. And so Max drags Chris to a chapel. We have never seen this chapel before. We don't know where it came from. This is one of those things that I'm like, we could have peppered this in a little bit earlier and it would have helped with some of the world building.
Yeah. Well, the reason we don't see the chapel before is because the chapel is just the set with a green screen on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, all it would have taken, it was like, there's this old weird house over by the chapel. Chapel? Why is there a chapel here? I don't fucking know. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Things that small would have kind of helped. But she goes, and Chris tries to talk her out of it. He's like, your mom can't come home with it. Like, and it's not your mom. And like, I know this hurts, but like, he's going to kill her. Like, that has to happen.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, I'm going to go save her. So she goes to this abandoned house on the camp property that they saw in the flashback. And of course, finds a bunch of the other dead bodies, but finds her mom, unties her. They all, like, as she's kind of trying to get out, she gets stabbed. Max gets stabbed.
Yeah. So now the only person left unstabbed is Nancy, her mom.
Yeah. And her mom drags her back to the chapel, and she's like, hey, I'm not supposed to be the final girl. That's not who I am. It is who you are. I need to go out there and finish my destiny in this movie. And like, thanks for letting me be your friend, but you got to finish this alone, unfortunately. So.
It's brutal, man.
Yeah.
I cried a lot during this time.
Oh, yeah. Very sad.
Yeah, it's very sad.
Yeah.
And it's like the sad reality of what it's like to lose someone in life.
Well, and I mean, she immediately steps out of the chapel into that crazy wide shot with the fog. And I was like, this is where the entire budget of this movie went. It was like these shots.
The anime of it all. It's amazing.
Well, and so she takes her top off to Betty Davis eyes.
Yeah. And that's what that calls Billy over. And she doesn't at all try to fight, which I think that, like, had I understood the rules of the world better, I would have felt like made more sense to me.
Yes.
Because to me, this feels very much like a guess as to whether it will actually work or not.
Right.
And so, like, I would not be willing to risk my life on a guess.
Yeah. So this scene, she watches it happen outside, and then her mom, Nancy, gets killed, and then she wakes up in the chapel, like 5 feet from where she was, seemingly later, and Billy's not around.
Yeah.
And this is where she's like, you fucked with the wrong virgin. She comes out. It's the same big wide shot.
Yeah.
They fight. The fight is awesome.
It is awesome, Paige. It's really great. They do a good job with it.
She decapitates him. And there's a moment where she's like, he's dead. And she's standing there breathing. And Chris comes out and they hug. And it's like, as a viewer, you're like, why isn't it over yet? And then the credits roll.
Paige, I thought it was wild that, like, they tried to establish that Chris is too injured to help her at all fight this last guy. And then after she kills him, he's like,
I'm fine.
Actually, I think I can walk. Yeah, I think I'll be okay.
Yeah.
This machete scratch is really healing up quickly.
Yeah. Well, and so they watched the full credits, which I do love. I love the credits playing in the sky. I love the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then as the reel ends, they clutch each other as if it's going to transport them back to the theater or whatever. But they wake up in the hospital next to everyone else. And I do love Thomas Middleditch's like rusty machete. And then I don't trust their stitch. Like this whole thing. And she's still got the friendship bracelet.
Yes.
And at this point I was like, fuck yes.
Yeah.
Because when the credits played, I was like, no, what about the stinger? A slasher always has a stinger where he comes back. And then they're in the hospital and she walks out into the hallway and we see the two nurses flirting. And I was like,
oh, it's a doctor and a nurse.
It's Halloween too. It's Halloween too.
Yeah.
And of course, they're like, the shift is almost over. And Thomas Middleditch is like, oh my God, no. We're in the sequel. And he smashes through the hospital. We get the title of the sequel.
And that's the movie. So having seen the movie, having talked about the movie, what'd you think about The Final Girls?
Ooh, I did enjoy it. I've said my piece about some of the things that I kind of wish were a little bit different, but overall, the homage holds up. It's very funny. I liked it a lot. It was a good time.
I thought it was great, too. I really enjoyed it. I understand the gripes. They just didn't bother me as much. But this also is like a movie that like...
the emotional part works the best.
Yeah, where Hereditary is like the opposite of this for me because it like uses my trauma to scare me. This movie feels a little bit like therapy on some level because it's like a fun look at like what it's like to like do the work and like find a way to move past losing somebody like that. And I realize that doesn't sound like a funny movie, but it is. Like they really do a great funny version of that and I'm here for it. I really liked it. I'll definitely watch this movie again, probably multiple times a year. I really enjoyed it. Anyway, Paige, do you have any fun facts for us?
I have some great fun facts for you.
Well, hit us with your fun facts.
Super great fun facts. As I mentioned, the emotional core of this movie is the part of it that works the best, I would say.
I agree.
And I think part of the reason why is because this film was conceived and co-written by Joshua John Miller as a way of dealing with the death of his dad, Jason Miller, who starred as Father Karras in the original Exorcist.
What?
Yes, bitch!
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What?
The actor who played Father Karras.
No, I know.
Had a son.
Yes.
That son wrote this movie to deal with the death of his father. I assume because I would say the writer probably has a very similar, a similar life experience to the character in this movie of people loving a movie where he has to watch his father die. Like, finding that out, I was like, yeah, of course you wrote this movie.
Yeah, that makes so much fucking sense.
Yes. Right? Like, it makes me cry more thinking about it where I'm just like, yeah, man, I'm glad you got to do this. This is cathartic, I think. I do like it a lot. So we talked about how the fly during the dance was ad-libbed, but also Angela Trimber, who played Tina, improvised the entire dance sequence.
The whole sequence? I didn't realize it was the whole... I thought it was just the bit with the fly. She does the whole sequence is ad-libbed?
She slammed energy drinks beforehand to get in character and worked herself up for the frantic dance. And I'm just here to say...
yeah.
Yes, girl.
Notes Ferratu for you, my friend.
That was amazing. It's so good.
That's nuts. Okay, good for her. She's amazing.
Now, I did find in fun fact something that I think justifies the critiques you and I had about some of the visuals. In the script, when the characters are sucked into Camp Bloodbath, it says that they stepped into a Technicolor world. Now, as film nerds, we know that that means kind of the grainy 80s version, because that's what Technicolor looked like. And when the writers arrived on set, they were initially horrified to find out that the crew had taken their words very literally and decorated the entire forest with colorful artificial flowers.
Okay.
I think it works the way as is, it's fine.
I think it does.
But yeah, that's definitely, I think, a different look than they were going for. So I think their initial plan is what you and I have kind of described as what we would have preferred in the movie. And I think budget probably just limited them.
Yeah, if they had the budget I bet they wanted, they could have done that, I think, very effectively.
I know this has probably been a fun fact before, probably even before me, but I feel like it's always nice to remind people. The term final girl was coined by Carol J. Clover in her 1992 book, Men, Women, and Chainsaws, Gender and Modern Horror Film, which, by the way, if you are a horror nerd, please read that book. It's very good. I recommend reading that and Horror Noir. Fantastic books. But it refers to the last girl standing at the end of a horror movie, especially a slasher.
Yeah.
There's debates about what the first slasher is. I actually really recommend Eli Roth's History of Horror, especially on slashers, where they go through not only the history of slashers in film, but how they've evolved over time. And I think it's very, very interesting.
Interesting. Okay.
Now, in the original script, And I think this was probably a limitation that they could not do because of budget. But in the original script, once they got into the movie world, they began undergoing physical and psychological transformations.
I wondered if we were going to see that.
Yeah, the girl's waistline shrunk, their breasts ballooned, and Gertie was so enamored of her newfound beauty that she tries to sabotage her friends to ensure they could never leave, which again would take a lot more time on screen. But I think that's kind of an interesting version of this where, in a way, they become the counselors as opposed to them meeting the counselors. I don't think there's a right or wrong way. I think that's just a different way to represent this same kind of an homage, and I do really like it.
Yeah.
The Girl Scout camp, where the bulk of the film was shot, it is a Girl Scout camp,
Okay.
didn't have a cabin large enough to accommodate the camera crane required for the booby trap sequence. So they had to build a cabin from scratch. And there wasn't enough money in the budget to tear it down.
Does it still exist?
Yes.
Nice.
The cabin was built structurally sound enough to be utilized by the camp after filming was completed so that they could share the cost.
Okay. Very cool.
Now, the song the camp counselors play after the first murder is Michael Row Your Boat Ashore, which is the same song that the counselors are playing in the pre-credit sequence in Friday the 13th from 1980, which again is Friday the 13th Part 1. That doesn't include Jason, but they are also wearing the same yellow shirts, so their camp uniforms are modeled after that original Friday the 13th.
Awesome. Okay.
So, the script was originally optioned by New Line, but the studio wanted to get rid of the emotional core of the movie and the mother-daughter plot.
What?
Yeah, I know. And for me, that's the part of the movie that works.
Yeah, no, that's the movie right there.
So eventually it ended up being produced by Sony, and Sony really liked the emotional core, but decided to tone down the violence to a PG-13 rating. So Todd, I think that had this been filmed as intended, it would have been R, we would have had blood, we would have had titties, it would have been grainy, and we would have still had the emotional core. And I think it's just a studio note and budgeting problem.
I mean, and I do think that movie also would have been great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when Thomas Middleditch tripped over the velvet rope in the movie theater during rehearsal, they thought it was so funny they made him do it again. And they also linger on the cardboard standee for Camp Bloodbath 2 Cruel Summer to set up the ending that we're going to get later.
Okay, yeah.
Now, originally the trailer wasn't supposed to be seen until they get into the diner, but test audiences had trouble distinguishing the movie's tone from the early scenes, so it was moved to the very beginning. But this is what I mean by you enter that heightened sense of reality and there's not as much of a barrier between the two.
Yeah.
There is a revelation in the movie that Gertie slept with a person with autism, and it was scripted originally in a very mean-spirited way. And Alia Shawkat did not like that. So she ad-libbed her own dialogue in the scene.
That's amazing.
And that's what stays in. Because in the scene, she's like, yeah, well, he was very romantic. So
yeah.
Where she's like, I actually really liked it. And he was a great person. And you're an asshole for saying anything about it. I was like, yeah, all right. Yeah. Most of the movie is shot in order.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. As far as the part of the movie that takes place in the fake movie.
Gotcha. Okay.
The real world scenes were actually shot at the very end of production. So, and they did that so that they seemed like they had more of a bond and they would believe their relationship with their characters.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Now, 92 minutes is also the runtime of this movie. So
yes,
the fact that it is also in Camp Bloodbath is kind of a fun in-joke.
Yeah.
And I do think that's something that was probably added after the fact, after they edited the movie, because it's added in time cards and post-prod. So I think they probably edited it and then went back and cut those in.
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah.
So the car accident in the beginning of the film, the one that really does not hold up effects-wise, was done entirely computer-generated, but the crash and the explosion at the camp was done practically, and that one looks better. And so
it does look better.
Yeah, but again, I think that's a budgeting thing, 100%.
I'm sure, yeah. But we'll talk about budget in a second.
Yeah, there's a lot of improv. Most of it stays in the cut after.
Man, that's awesome.
Now, Nancy, even though definitely named after Nightmare on Elm Street, but modeled after Amy Steele's character Ginny from Friday the 13th Part 2 from 1981.
Okay.
As far as where her character fits in the movie. I'll end on this one because this is a reference to another movie that we have also done. And I kind of noticed this in the movie. But Billy's origin story, as well as his pose on the poster for Camp Bloodbath 2, Cruel Summer, and the pose that he kind of strikes at the end of the movie in the hospital are all references to The Burning in 1981.
Yes.
The Harvey Weinstein classic based on Cropsy. And those are your fun facts.
Well, Paige, truly, thank you for those fun facts. Let's talk a little bit about box office. So what do you think the production budget was for this movie? And I'll just say this up front. This is an estimated budget. It's not a definite budget.
I think this cost $5 million, and it's not quite enough to do what they probably wanted to do.
Well, at that time, I don't think $5 million would even have covered the film, like to shoot the whole thing.
Yeah, if you wanted to do it on film.
Yeah, for the part there in the movie. But the estimated budget that I have is $4.5 million, Paige. So you were like right there.
Right there.
Yeah. And this movie did come out in 2015. So if you adjust that for inflation, that's almost $6 million. It's $5.9 million.
All right.
Now, this movie didn't get a theatrical release, and so we don't really have any box office information, although I did find that it brought in about $1.5 million in just DVD and Blu-ray sales, and this is 2015, so like I bet it made way more money from streaming services than it did there.
Yeah.
So I bet this movie actually, if the budget truly was $4.5 million, I bet it's made that back and then some. It's probably not ever going to be big enough for them to have an appetite to do a second movie, but...
No, and it looks like $5 million.
Yeah.
That estimated budget sounds just about right to me.
Which is not to say it looks bad. Like, I think a lot of it looks great.
No, it just looks like $5 million. I feel like if this was $15 million, we'd have some different visuals. It'd probably be rated R. We'd probably have more blood. We'd probably have a lot of stuff. But that's 3 times the budget. So with a third of the budget, they still made a movie that works.
Yeah, and it's good. I like it a lot. I was a fan of it.
Yeah.
But because it didn't get a theatrical release, that's really all the information I have for you. So that is your box office. But Paige, would you like to hit us with that scary scale?
Sure. Our scary scale is a scale of 1 to 10 of how scary we found the movie today when we watched it. 1 being Ghostbusters, 10 being Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Todd?
I'm going to give it a very soft 2. Just because there were a few moments when like they introduce Billy for the first time where I was like startled, jump scared, but it's not really that scary. But I can't give it a 1 because it did make me like jump in my like small plane seat twice. So a 2. But it's not, you can get through it, guys. It's not super scary.
This is a 1 for me. But I think intentionally it's meant to play as a comedy. Yeah. So I'm going to give this a 1.
I think that's very appropriate. Yes.
That's our scary scale.
So this week, Paige, the listeners made us watch The Final Girls. What are we going to watch next week as we start a new month and new theme?
It's the end of summer. Sad times. But that means that a lot of people are going back to school. So it's time for back to school horror. And we're going to kick this shit off with 2000's Battle Royale.
This is a movie I have never even heard of.
It's very famous. It's based on a book. And we'll be watching it in the original Japanese. It's very bloody and it's good as hell. And I'm very excited.
All right. Well, I guess your homework is to watch Battle Royale on whatever streaming platform is running it currently.
Pretty much all. It's pretty much everywhere.
Awesome. So check out Battle Royale for next week. But Paige, do you want to hear maybe a Spotify comment and or review?
I would love to, Todd. Tell me about them.
Well, let me start off with one from our most recent episode, and that is the Hostel Part 2 episode. So this one comes from Hannah, and she says, I'm a nude life model.
Love that.
And the one thing I can say is best about it, other than the money, she says in parentheses.
Oh, yeah, they do pay well.
Is that it's so good for my mental health.
I believe it.
Oh, just like Peachios or whatever you say.
Yeah, Peachios are good for my mental health, but I can absolutely imagine that being a life drawing model is probably great for your mental health.
They go on to say, I get a chance to sit and meditate unbothered for up to 2 hours and I get paid for it. I can't recommend it enough.
Love that.
So Hannah, that sounds amazing. Get that paper, girl. I also do have a 5-star review, and this one comes from Snowy Days. And they say, I'm turning into a brave person, ?
I love that for you. Good job.
Me too. Yeah. And they say, I've always been a scaredy cat when it comes to horror movies, but after listening to you guys talk through them, I'm becoming braver. I miss Mikey. Best of luck to him on his new adventures, my dude. But Paige and Todd are killing it. So thank you very much, Snowy Days, for that 5-star review, and Hannah for that awesome Spotify comment. And if you want to have us read your Spotify comment or 5-star review. Leave us a 5-star review or comment, and I will do just that. So guys, if you like this show but want to hear Paige and I talk about romantic comedies or just regular romantic movies, check out our other podcast. Some might call it a sister podcast called Romancing the Pod, where we do just that weekly. It's a lot like this show, but for romance and romantic comedies, because Paige doesn't like them. So we make her watch them, just like you guys make me watch horror over here. But if you want to follow me, I am at Todd J. Awesome on all the social media. Paige is at Rampage Wesley on Instagram?
Yes, and TikTok.
And just Paige Wesley on Twitter, because you got that before some CEO lady and she wanted it, but you wouldn't give it back, and I respect you for that.
Refuse.
Also, Paige
Suck it, other Paige Wesley.
Paige is also on another podcast. It's great. You should check it out. It's called Cult Podcast with Armando Torres, who is a wonderful person. And if you want to support this show, go to Patreon at patreon.com/horrorvirgin, where there are a lot of great levels and a lot of great things. We do the Patreon shout outs at the beginning of every episode. We do listener requests, stuff like that, bonus episodes. So you'll be getting all of that content, plus episodes a day early with no ads, and who doesn't love that? So sign up for the Patreon and get a lot of great stuff.
And that's going to be it for us, you guys. I'm Paige.
And I'm your horror virgin, Todd.
Keep it ooky spooky.
Have an amazing week. Bye. She's my final girl. Gonna take that machete and stab that dude.